So, first off, hello, good afternoon, good after Shabbos. A huge question that has been bothering me since the whole epidemic has started over the past month. And I think it's a general question that many Lubavitchers carry, and may not even just be specific to the corona situation, but a general world situation altogether, which is that as a Lubavitcher, we were poised uh, from the 80s and into the 90s from the Rebbe that Mashiach is coming at any moment. And I think the Lubavitchers who were hanging around the Rebbe at that point in time were expecting, truthfully, that Mashiach was going to walk in at any second. Mashiach was going to reveal himself at any second. The world was going to change in a huge way. And I think from what I've heard from a lot of people that when Gimel Thomas happened, the world didn't even know remotely how to deal with it because so many Lubavitchers thought, it was a test, it was a joke, didn't really happen, whatever it was. And yet here we are watching time tick by, and the Rebbe gives us a promise that we're the last generation of exile, we're the first generation of Geula. And as we experience this and as we go forward, we've walked through a lot of events over the past 25 years. Some of the most dramatic, 9/11 we've experienced, wars in Iraq, Afghanistan. You've got Israel, everything that happens over there, and terrorism and 2008 economic crash. But I think this is the first time that we're coming to a point in history where something is changing in a way that is affecting the entire world in a major scale. And the news is talking as if the world is going to be changing in a incredible way. The news is talking countries not able to go back to normal. Last night there was news reports coming out that the EU might have to break up. States are locking down. It's absolutely crazy. And my question is, I guess, or intro is, how does Lubavitcher, how does somebody who knows the Rebbe's thoughts that, we're here, how do you not look at this and say that this has to be Mashiach? This has to be what the Rebbe was getting us set up for and ready to go forward for. And how should we be approaching it from that aspect and that angle?
This has to be Mashiach. Yes, that's true. I think everybody is saying it in their own way. Saying that the world is changing dramatically, that's exactly what Mashiach is all about. The question is positively or negatively. So I just heard on the news somebody saying half the world's population is in quarantine. That means that the whole world has been separated, because if half are inside, the other half are outside. So the whole world is affected, as you say. But let's take a look at what we can understand about this whole thing. The Shabbos is called Shabbos HaGodel. Why is it called Shabbos HaGodel? Because before the Jews came out of Egypt, there was a miracle that the firstborn, meaning the educated, the sophisticated Egyptians, came to Pharaoh and his ministers and said, "You got to let the Jews go. This is God's doing all these plagues. You got to let them go." And they wouldn't. And so a war broke out. And many Egyptians were killed in that war between the government and the people. So we celebrate that miracle by remembering it in Shabbos HaGodel. It was actually on the 10th of the month, like 5 days before the Jews left. And in the writings, in the codes where it says that this Shabbos should be treated special because it's Shabbos HaGadol, the explanation for why it's called Shabbos HaGadol is very simply stated as a miracle happened on this Shabbos. The Alter Rebbe, in his writing, in his Shulchan Aruch, he says that this is Shabbos HaGadol because Nes Gadol, a great miracle, happened. Pretty much like on the dreidel, right? Nes Gadol HaYasham. The reason the Rebbe adds that word, really tellingly, is because the Rebbe is saying that it wasn't a great Shabbos on account of a miracle. It was a special Shabbos on account of a great miracle. So when we say Shabbos Gadol, a big Shabbos, the Gadol goes not on the Shabbos, but on the miracle that happened. Now, what is the difference between a miracle and a big miracle, a great miracle? You would think every miracle is great. It's a miracle. There's a difference. When a small army defeats a larger army, that's called a miracle. When the Maccabees were able to defeat the Assyrians, the Greek armies, that's a miracle. But when the enemy themselves are arguing and fighting for you all of a sudden, that's a big miracle. A big miracle means when something happens that is like Mashiach-dik. What is Mashiach-dik? The world itself on its own, the evil, the strongest evil in the world, is suddenly on your side. Your worst and most dangerous enemy is suddenly doing your fighting for you. Now, that's not just a miracle, that's a big miracle. Why? Because it's completely ignoring the laws of nature. Now, a little army can beat a larger army. It's not what you expect, but it's not supernatural. If the smaller army is better prepared and has better strategy or advantages or whatever, they can beat a larger army. Finland was able to hold off the Nazis. So that's a miracle. It's not a big miracle. Like when communism just destroyed itself. That, the Rebbe said, is not only a miracle, that's a big miracle. Or in different words, that's not a Golus miracle, that's a Mashiach miracle. In Golus, the evil remains evil. It's sometimes defeated by a stronger force, but the evil never stopped being evil. When the evil itself is fighting for you, that's a big miracle. So now we're coming into the Shabbos HaGadol, followed by the Rebbe's birthday, followed by Pesach. It's realistic on the Jewish calendar. It's realistic to expect really good things to happen. So what is the story with Mashiach? When the Rebbe said we are the last generation of Golus and the first generation of Geula, it wasn't all good news. It was almost like the Rebbe was telling us we're in for a ride, buckle up. Because if you're in Golus, okay, we kind of got used to surviving Golus. And if you're in Geula, well, then there's nothing to worry about at all. But if you're the last generation of the Golus and the first generation of the Geula, this is an unusual predicament to be in. You've got 1 foot in Golus and 1 foot in Geula. This is going to be very confusing. So things are happening as if we're still completely in Golus, And things are happening as if Mashiach is already here. It's confusing. Now take a look at what's going on with this virus. On the one hand, people are getting sick, people are dying, financial crisis, very much golus. On the other hand, look at how people are reacting. Look at the goodness. The people risking their lives to help others, volunteering, flying cross country just to be available to help others and put themselves in danger. In homes where people are quarantined, so much good is happening, thanks to the internet, by the way. And that itself is also a good example. And it wasn't long ago when we were all up in arms, panicked, terrified by the evils of the internet. It's going to destroy us. It's keeping us alive. So much good is happening on the internet. People preparing for Pesach, studying up for how to make a Seder, classes, yeshivas, learning
This class.
holiness. Huh?
This conversation.
This conversation. It's amazing, right? So two sides of good and evil. You know, the internet is Golus and the internet is Geula. Which one is going to win? The whole world is standing on that border. So there's no doubt, probably more than before, that we are entering a Mashiach stage. But the transition could be confusing. And that's why there are so many people who are seeing this in a negative way, that we are being punished, God forbid, that God is not interested in our davening and on our prayers anymore. Don't come to shul, I don't want to see you. I mean, things like that are completely absurd. But, you know, when you got one foot in Golus, you can make that mistake. So we need to focus very clearly on the Mashiach aspect of what's going on. And what is a Mashiach aspect? Everything we thought was negative is turning positive. And an important part of that is when the idea of being quarantined was introduced, most people panicked. What am I going to do? Stuck in the house with the kids? I'm going to go crazy.
I am going crazy.
And some people are going crazy, but in such a good way. Most people are pleasantly surprised. Being stuck in the house with the kids is such a pleasure. It's so important. It's so good for them and for the parents. It's really. And people panicked. I'm going to be stuck in the house with my spouse. It's going to be ugly. It's not. It's not. The authorities, the experts were very worried. The abuse that's going to happen, the domestic abuse. People who don't get along are stuck in the house. They thought the police would be getting calls more than the hospitals. That's not happening. From what I'm hearing, people who needed heavy and serious marriage counseling, they're stuck in the house together and they're getting along. They're looking at each
They
other.
have no choice.
And it's bringing out a good side. It's not like I have no choice, so I gotta be nasty to you. It's we have no choice. All of a sudden, we're looking good. You are my life. Why am I arguing with you? You're all I got. Why am I being nasty? Or what are we arguing about? It's suddenly so petty. So the world, on a moral level, is vastly improved. On the health level, we still need some help, a lot of help. So let's not suffer from this confusion. Yes, we are the last generation of Golos. And yes, it's been a painful adjustment. But the good is unprecedented. It's Mashiach. So this negative event, this tragic event, is bringing out so much goodness. And what's happening on a geographic level, on a political level, on a global level, it's absolutely true. Countries are not going to be able to go back to business as usual, and they shouldn't. They got to find a much better way. Countries that were miserable and there seemed to be no end to it, all of a sudden, there's an end to it. When this plague is over, we're going to have a whole new system. The world is going to function on a different level. Countries are going to cooperate, help each other, assist each other. Businesses are going to cooperate and help each other. The cutthroat rat race kind of a lifestyle, that's gone. That's gone. We have no choice. It's not going to work if we compete. We have nothing to compete with. We're all bankrupt. We're all overwhelmed. So it's going to be a much prettier world, a much more moral world. And when that happens, we can accomplish everything, anything. Nothing is impossible as long as we're doing good. So people are worried about their jobs and about their income and their finances. They're right. It's not going to be the way it used to be. But why is that negative? That can be the best news in the world. Because going to work as an escape from your family, which is what it's become to many, many people. Going to work is life. Going home is misery, or just a duty that you dread. That was not the way life was meant to be. So the fact that people were afraid to be home with their kids and with their spouse, that is what this virus is going to destroy, because that's not a way to live. To dread being home for more than an hour a day, that's life. That's terrible. The kids knew it. They felt it. They were threatened and frightened by it. They were offended by it, and they showed their displeasure by acting out and doing ridiculous things. This is not a life. When it's a pleasure to be home, then you can go to work and make a few dollars to provide for your family. But you live in your family. You only work at your job. So the job is the drudgery, not the family. If that changes, we have a much better world. And that is changing. So when you say, people are confused, the Rebbe said, the end part, the final chapter of Golus, we still have to live through, but that means that we're the first generation of Geula. So yes, it's exactly what's happening.
There are a lot of things going around. Everyone today has WhatsApp to keep them company in the house, along with the rest of the internet. And there's a lot of things circulating, different Mekubalim and prophecies and things from there's so many things going around. Everyone has their every time you turn on WhatsApp, there's another thing about Mashiach, and some are very, very scary, some are very positive. The
Torah
positive
codes.
note, Torah code, everything. do you take this seriously? Some of them predict, real apocalyptic happenings, to come. Some of this. How do we approach this? How does the Rebbe's thought process approach this? How do we go forward with this?
There's this thing online. It says, if you're not Mashiach, stay home. The only one who should be traveling today is Mashiach, because, he has to come. But otherwise, people should stay home. If you're not a Navi, stop with the predictions. It's not nice. It's out of line. What are you doing? What? No, don't take any of that seriously. And if it's negative, not only is it a joke, it's dangerous. To frighten people or discourage people is absolutely the wrong thing to do. Absolutely. A virus is a threat to life. And that's why we're fighting it. Panic, fear, anxiety is as bad as the virus itself. So to create that kind of feeling for people, to make them feel like they're being punished and that who knows how much punishment is to follow, that's a virus. Not allowed to do that, ever. And it's certainly not the Rebbe style. So don't take those things seriously. The only thing that I find that is a little interesting is the Medrash, the Sifri, that says that the war of Gog and Magog is not necessarily a war between two armies. It could also be a war against a plague. That's interesting. But that's all we know. So how is the war going to go? How are we going to win the war? We will see in a very short time. So don't become a prophet, and certainly not a prophet of doom.
You should make prophets.
Not useful. Yeah.
What is the Rebbe's approach on how the world transforms into Mashiach? I mean, you don't hear a lot of talk outside of Lubavitch. You don't hear a lot of talk, or inside of Lubavitch. You don't hear a lot of talk about Gog and Magog or doomsday wars or what. But yet you find definitely the Rebbe's talking about a Renan Fleiss. You talk about amazing miracles that are going to have to happen. You find different references, like you're referencing the Midrash in Pesach. You find that the Barad, some of it was suspended in Shemaim, and so it's going to be used in the future to rain down on the enemies of Klal Yisrael. So you find definitely midrashim that are hinting that there's going to be some major battle or major war at the end. How does the Rebbe's approach play into all of this?
One of the things, if you remember, the Rebbe insisted hundreds of times that the only guide, the only picture we have of Mashiach is the one we find in Rambam. Hundreds of times the Rebbe said that. The only authority on Mashiach that we need to take literally is Rambam. Rambam says before the coming of Mashiach, there will be a big war. That's not speculation and that's not prophecy, that's halacha. And that before that war, a Navi will come like Eliyahu, who will prepare us, guide us, explain to us how we should handle this. So that is not new speculation on anybody's part. It's good news to think that war that Rambam says is a predictable part of the process doesn't have to be a physical battle. We've been thinking that way for a long time. What battle is necessary for Mashiach to come? Why does there have to be a war? To say that
I think I just to chime in, I think that people have a hard, at least me personally, there's a hard time imagining that, we're just going to transfer over the way everything is today to the end of times, to Mashiach world. And you picture a war, you picture what we know of a World War II, World War One, buildings toppled over in the whole world. You could picture that walking into Mashiach. But the picture that we're going to walk out of our houses and Mashiach's going to come, I think that's a much harder thing for people to picture. When the world starts going crazy as it is right now with the virus and something that's affecting the whole world, I think people have an easier time seeing that as something that's going to lead somewhere, versus saying, everything's going great, going about my regular work and regular job, and tomorrow Mashiach is going to come.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it makes sense that for this vast change to happen, there has to be some kind of powerful disturbance, right? Upheaval. Otherwise, we'll just stay and continue to do what we've been doing. That's true. And the first thing that comes to mind is a huge world war. But we've never seen war produce any good. Certainly not a lasting good. And why would that be necessary? Why would that in any way encourage the coming of Mashiach? They shouldn't be related. So it was always understood that what is this war to end all wars? What, kill off 3/4 of the world's population? God forbid. The war that ends all wars is an ideological one. People go to war over an issue. It's the issue that is really the dangerous thing. When we have a serious disagreement over a border, over a country, as to who it belongs to, we're going to have a war. But what is the war about? Whose land is it? So it's an issue. The final war, which is absolutely necessary for Mashiach to come, is an ideological battle. Whose version of God's law is the right one? Did God say, "Thou shalt not murder"? Or did God say, if people annoy you, kill them? If people don't live up to your expectations, kill them? We can't have two moralities. We can't have two sets of 10 commandments. There can only be one. So for Mashiach to come, the world has to all get together and agree on one moral code, a divine moral code, which you don't play with, you don't mess with, but only one, not two, not three. So that's the war that absolutely has to happen. The victory will be that what God really said and what God really wants and what God really expects will become obvious and evident and known and accepted by the entire world. That doesn't have to have a physical battle attached to it. It doesn't say that everybody who doesn't agree or believe has to be killed or shot. That's a horrible thought. So it is an ideological war. And this virus is not pitting one nation against another. On the contrary, it's uniting the world. And when the world gets united over an issue, we can now be united over the bigger issue. So how do we live a life worth living? So what is life all about? This is the good result that's going to come from this. And Jews are going to have to really step up. We're going to have to tell the world exactly what happened at Mount Sinai. We know because we were there. The world tried to improve on it. Religions popped up and said, we have a better idea. Well, it turned out not to be such a better idea. So now the world is going to go back to the original document, which the Jews have preserved over all of our impossible, difficult history. But the one thing we did is we kept the Torah pristine. We know exactly what God wants of Jews. We know exactly what God wants of human beings. We know exactly what God wants of his creation. That sounds like a really nice resolution to the old problem.
Someone messaged me. They said to me, "It's great you're talking about Mashiach. It's wonderful. What happens in a year from now? We're back to regular life and nothing changed." Do you see that happening?
No, not at all. Look, there are three things that have to happen for Mashiach, or Mashiach has to accomplish. Three things. One is Jews should be excited about Judaism. Number two, the whole world should be at peace and want goodness. And number three, the earth should provide so much wealth that we shouldn't need to work. That's it. Is that asking too much? All we're asking is for Jews to be good Jews, for people to be good people, and for the earth to be good and not force us to work so hard. So just a simple example. If solar energy became completely free and available to everyone, we wouldn't have to work. Because if energy was free, everything else would cost 10 cents. It's the energy that makes everything so expensive. If an airplane could fly for free, because the energy is free, what are they going to charge you for? The peanuts? The pilots? Yeah, right. So that's what we're looking forward to. That Jews will find an enthusiasm for who they are. Human beings all over the world will become good. In other words, pursue goodness, look for ways to be good, and therefore there'll be peace. And this curse of by the sweat of your brow you will eat bread, the need to work, whether it's agricultural work or high-tech work, all of this should become unnecessary. We can do it for the fun of it, but it shouldn't be a lifestyle. It shouldn't be an absolute necessity. You must go to school in order to get a job, in order to make money, in order to pay the bills, and in order to live. That condition's got to go. So here's what we're looking forward to. A world in which Jews love being Jews, a world in which human beings have risen to the true state of human without any animalistic impulses. And the earth, it has so much potential that we have not yet tapped into. That's it. That's not an impossible dream. In fact, it's an absolutely necessary eventuality. I mean, how long are people going to continue to act like animals? How long are Jews going to be confused and tortured by their own identity? And how long will it take before the secrets of the earth's potential will be discovered? It's going to happen. The exciting thing is that it's going to happen next week.
Why not today?
Today it's happening. It is. But the visible results and the success of the project will be obvious in a very short time. All those people who are predicting it's going to go into next winter and it's going to go into the you admit that you don't even know what this virus is and you don't know how it spreads. You're still changing your mind every day about what to do to prevent it.
The latest is now they say we all have to wear masks.
Yeah.
Last week, no, we don't have to wear masks.
Right. So if you really don't know what you're dealing with, how can you be so sure how long it's going to last? So all these fake prophets, Don't pay any attention. If they
We know,
reported the good news the way they report the bad news, obviously we would have a completely different picture. How many people recover every day from this virus? That's not newsworthy. Only how many people die from it is newsworthy. What are you trying to do? So don't listen to that stuff. Mashiach is coming. In fact, it's almost obvious that he's coming. It's not a matter of leap of faith anymore. It's not ani mamin. It's ani reye. That's what the Rebbe said. Open your eyes. Stop believing. If you take a closer look, you'll see it. Seeing it is good news. That we still have to believe it is not such good news. Those are the two sides. If you're in Golus, you have to believe Mashiach is coming. If you're in Geula, you can see that he's coming. So we've got one foot in each of the worlds. But the emphasis should be on, I'm starting to see it. I don't need to believe it anymore.
we find practically that this is the fourth Gullus. This is Gullus of Edom. You had Bavel, and you had the Persians and the Greeks. And now the Romans are Edom. And before each Gullus ended, officially that empire had to sort of come to an end. Do you think what we're seeing is, in a certain sense, the end of Edom?
People said that about the collapse of communism. And it kind of made sense. But we don't need any country to collapse. No country is the problem. It's the arrogance. And the arrogance is collapsing. The arrogance of Iran, pretty much gone. And if their arrogance is gone, they're not a threat. They don't need to be destroyed.
By the way, North Korea is still insisting they have no one with the virus.
Yeah. Their arrogance will definitely be gone when that secret comes out. They'll not only have virus, they'll also have egg on their face. So it's not countries or people that need to be destroyed. It's just the arrogance. The arrogance of thinking that we don't need to learn, we don't need to be taught. We know everything we need to know. It's a foolish arrogance. And it's disappearing by the day.
How interesting do you think it is that this all started in Adar and in Nisan versus, per se, Av or Tammuz, the other months of the year?
It's very encouraging. It really, for me personally, that it's happening in these 2 months is absolutely convincing that this is all for the good. This is all a positive development. And one of the things that we should think about is so many people who have passed away in these 2 months, their family can't say Kaddish for them. Many of them. Because you can't put together a minyan. How sad is that? How tragic is that? Unless you think the way that Rebbe taught us to think. Who created this situation? God did. Who says that we need to say Kaddish for someone who passed away? God does. So when God creates a situation where you can't say Kaddish for someone who passed away, what is God telling you? That there is something happening in the world today where a person who passes away does not need Kaddish. Isn't that awesome? The people who are passing away today don't need Kaddish for them to make the transition into Gan Eden. Why do we always think and assume the worst? It is such a huge compliment. Most people aren't going to be able to say Yiska. Well, guess why? Because Yizkor means we need to remember those who have passed away, but now we have to start looking forward to their return. Don't remember them, bring them back. Think positive. It's exactly the same reality. What does it cost you to be positive about it? Both are unrealistic. To be negative and to be positive are both unrealistic until it happens. Because
So you're saying just chiming in on a practical level, there's a huge situation being spoken about across Eretz Israel and Europe. I think even here in America, people who are being buried, the kvura is without a tahara. They're being buried in plastic bags. And you're saying this is, in a sense, it's just not needed spiritually because for whatever reason.
Like Hasidus teaches us, the reason there are no sacrifices, there are no carbonis, is because we don't need them. It's not a negative, it's a positive. By studying about the carbon, by saying it out loud, we're accomplishing more than we did by bringing the actual sacrifice. So if God is telling us you don't need to say Kaddish, what a compliment to those people who have just passed away. There is awesome stuff going on, awesomely good, awesomely positive. Does that mean there's no pain? There's a lot of pain. A lot of pain. Great people are passing away. Great losses to their family, to their community, to the world. So yes, the pain is real. But bad, negative, discouraging, that's not kosher. Grieving is a sign of life. When you grieve that someone passed away, it's because life is so much, is so appreciated. Life is so valuable and life is so precious that any loss of life is grievous. But if you're not interested in life, then why are you kvetching about death? To the degree that you cherish life, to that degree you are hurt by the loss of life. So we can't go negative. We can't, God forbid, people are starting to think this plague is out of control. I don't even want to finish that sentence. They're convinced that what this thing is going to bring is unspeakable. If you're convinced that that's what's happening, have you already given in? Have you already surrendered to the loss of life? Are you giving up on life? That is not helpful. When there's a possibility of life ending, we have to become more alive. We're on the side of life. So whatever threatens life, we defend life. We don't start to think, I guess death is inevitable, so what's the point? We never do that. We would be long gone if we had that attitude. Never, never, never. Life is permanent, death is temporary. Yes, death is temporary because it only serves a purpose, and once that purpose has been accomplished, it's no longer necessary and it will stop. And those who have passed away will come back. Death is temporary. It's the wheel that's turning. Life is permanent. So don't start respecting death. Respect life. And if you respect it, you protect it, and you defend it, and you expect it. So don't get negative, even when you're feeling the pain of the loss. It's painful because it's not supposed to happen. Life is supposed to happen. When Mashiach comes, God will explain why death had been necessary and why it's no longer necessary. That's called choose life. Choose life.
I want to bring up something that's I came across this year. The last Purim for Bringen, 1987, the Rebbe spoke about different katzim, different ends of times predicted by different Rebbeim. The Rebbe Rashab had a katz predicted in 1905, 1906 time frame, and the Frierdiker Rebbe had a katz predicted in 1942, 43, 44. And the Rebbe said, I was searching, these things were all printed. These things were printed and put out, and yet here we are, almost 100 years post the Rebbe Rashab's idea, and close to 100 years from the Frierdiker Rebbe's date. And he said, I searched for an answer, and the only answer I could find is that every single one of us need to make a difference. And yet the Rebbe still promises us that we're here. How much is it dependent upon us, and how much is the process just coming to an end?
Well, it completely depends on us. That is obvious from the fact that it's taking so long. If it was up to God, it would have happened a long time ago. If it was up to Mashiach himself, he would have come a long time ago. Obviously, we need to be ready, and that's what's taking time. But all of these predictions, the Ketz, it was not good news. The holy people dreaded those years that had been marked for the coming of Mashiach, because Mashiach could come through some painful means. So it wasn't all good news. And that's because it depends on our readiness, and we weren't ready. So it was almost like Mashiach was going to come and force himself on us. That's why the Rebbe kept saying that the Geula should come in a peaceful manner, in a gentle manner, not in the other possibility. Then the Rebbe told us, there is no ketz. Kolu kol hakitzim. We're not predicting the coming of Mashiach anymore. We're already in the times of Mashiach. We've run out of time. Mashiach has to come before the 6,000th year. We're in 5,780. If he's coming before 6,000, well, come on. What are you going to do? Come a day before? That's not significant.
One of the things going around is that if you take the years that you went out of Mitzrayim earlier and you subtract it from 6,000, you get to 5,780.
Nice. Do you see the clip? Rabbi Hecht says to the Rebbe that somebody said that 770, you see that? That 770 is the gematria of some, I forget what it was. Anyway, he said it as the Rebbe was leaving the rally. And the Rebbe goes like, that's cute. That's nice. So yeah, that's nice. What we want is actual Mashiach. So the Rebbe was not saying that he's predicting.
One of the things, by the way, I noticed, just my own personal thoughts, is that the Rebbe's whole point that we were in Dor Shvi, and this year is 70 years of Dor Shvi. So you have 7 and 70. As you said, that's nice.
That's nice, yeah. So the Rebbe was not predicting. The Rebbe said the time is up. We've run out of time. If Mashiach doesn't come now, then what's the point of coming before the year 6,000? If we're promised that Mashiach will come before, it has to be a significant before. So now is the time. And that's why it's not a matter of our deserving it anymore. Now it's just a matter of packing our bags, getting ready. I don't mean that physically. Don't start packing bags. We can either go to Israel or Israel can come to us.
At this point, no one can go to Israel.
Yeah, so Israel will have to come to us. The holiness of Eretz Yisrael has to spread throughout the whole world. So wherever you're going to be in Israel. The earth will become the holy land. That's required. That has to happen. Because the world is God's creation. It can't remain unholy. So what the Rebbe was saying is not another Ketz. The Rebbe was saying we don't need that anymore. It's like Friday afternoon. Shabbos is coming, ready or not. That's the Deir Shvi. It's Shabbosdik, and Shabbos doesn't wait. It happens when it happens. So definitely the year 5780 is Friday afternoon on the cosmic calendar. So we just need to get the food cooked and the house ready, and then we make Kiddush, and it's Shabbos.
What does this mean to individuals on a practical level?
On a practical level,
And with Pesach coming up added in.
it means that this year we have to enjoy Pesach and not see it as drudgery. This year, husband and wife are both cleaning for Pesach. The whole family is cleaning for Pesach. And the requirement for today is that we should do it wholeheartedly. We should do it like they did it the first time in Mitzrayim. They were also the last generation of Golus and the first generation of Geula. So what did they do? They made a Seder in Golus, in the thick of the evil and darkness. And they did it with great anticipation, with their gartel on, ready for travel, ready to go. And in that merit, in that mood, they were able to be the first generation of Geula without freaking out. They were mentally prepared. And so they did it wisely, they did it maturely, they did it in an organized fashion. They were not overwhelmed by the good news because they had prepared while they were still in Golus. So this is the Pesach that prepares us for the final change in the world. It won't overwhelm us. We won't freak out. We know it's coming. We know what it takes. We know what we're going to have to do, and we're ready. And how do we know we're ready? Because we're making Pesach under these circumstances. And we're doing it with simcha, with optimism. That's not only a virtue, that's a good plan. That's a good plan. You can't make sudden changes without freaking out. So the change will be dramatic, but it won't be freaky. We have our head on straight. So we're not going to run around in circles freaking out when the good news comes.
There's this interesting Zohar that says that the generation that went out of Mitzrayim will be a Gilgal of the generation that goes out of Golus.
Yeah.
We've done it before.
One final thing that we might want to think about. After Mashiach comes, those who have passed away will be coming back in Tchias HaMesim, in the resurrection. When a body is resurrected, it's like the bodies of Adam and Chava. A resurrected body is not being born, it's being created by God. Like Adam and Chava's body is created by God. That kind of body never dies. So once a body is resurrected, it will never die. So what about the people who are alive when Mashiach comes? How will their bodies be resurrected? So the Rebbe said many times, it's the arrogance of the body that needs to die, not the physical body itself. So if we are humbled to the earth, that's called dying, because from dust you are and to dust you return. When a person feels humbled to the dust, that's good enough. Then the body is resurrected without arrogance, without ego, and then it can live forever. So are we being humbled? And it's a healthy thing. So if we let this thing humble us, because we're so helpless, we're so tiny in our defenselessness. So our arrogance is gone. Let it go. Let go of arrogance. And the best way to show that is at home. When husband and wife can put aside their egos, the relationship is perfect and wonderful. Let it go. We're being resurrected in a sense. And that's also very good news.
We're all home.
Yeah.
So
Somebody once asked a non-Jewish social worker, so how come in some religions the clergy are encouraged to be celibate, and in Judaism the rabbis are encouraged to have big families? Why the difference? So I said, everybody wants their clergy to have special qualities, virtues. Some religions want their clergy to have the virtue of celibacy. Jews want their rabbis to have the virtue of humility. And nothing humbles you like a marriage, like a family. So let your family humble you. There's really nothing to fight over. If we're sober, if we're thinking clearly, there is nothing to fight over. On the contrary, just having each other is the biggest blessing in the world, that we're not alone. And aloneness is dangerous. It weakens you, it threatens your life, just as much as a virus. So the antidote is to become one with another human being, which is your spouse. And that way you will never feel alone. And if you're never alone, you are stronger and you can fight this thing and recover from it if you get it or not get it in the first place. So humility is the solution to many of our problems. And it's happening to us. Just don't fight it. Go with it. Welcome it. And we will all be happier, healthier, and we may even live forever.
Amen. Somebody was saying that there's an interesting halacha, and we know the minhag of the Rebbeim, how they dealt with this when their fathers had already passed. And interesting, when it comes to the Manish Tana, if someone is making a seder alone, do they say the Manish Tana? And we know that their Rebbeim would still say it even when their fathers weren't present, when their fathers were around. But people would think, when is someone going to ever have a Pesach Seder alone? Where are you going to ever be alone? There's always a bubby, there's always a Zaidi, a cousin, uncle. Someone's inviting you somewhere, there's a Chabad house open. For the first time, it's possible people are alone for Pesach. And yet...
And when they ask the 4 questions, their Father will come from heaven, wherever, whichever heaven he may be in. He will come to your house to hear you ask the questions. And he may even answer you. So you will not be alone. Of course, Eliyahu also comes to the house. But he goes to everybody's house. That's why they're saying, don't let him in the door. He's without gloves or a mask. But Eliyahu comes to the door, and that's an occasion, an opportunity to ask for blessings and to get blessings. And the blessing we should ask for this year is so blatant, it's so obvious, it stares you in the eye. Eliyahu is there. Do you see him? No, we can't see him. You tell your children, Eliyahu is going to come. We're pouring a cup for him. Oh, am I going to see him? No, you can't see him. This year, the blessing we should ask for is, you're there, you're giving me blessings. What's with the hiding? Why is truth still hidden? We already know about it. We learned about it. We believe it. What are you hiding for? Who are you kidding? We know you're there. Come on out. And that's true of all things. All the truth that we know is right. Why is it hiding? Is it true that human beings are basically good? Yes. Then why is it hidden? Is it true that Jews love being Jewish? Yes. We've sacrificed our lives for that. So why is that hiding? It's true that Jews don't eat pork? Yeah, it's true. But you know, there are Jews who do. See? The truth is hiding. Doesn't make it any less true. It just makes it mysterious. And we've had enough of this mystery. So when Eliyahu comes to your door, say, the blessing I'm asking for is that all the things that I know are true should become visible and knowable and evident. No more hiding. If it's true, it might as well be revealed. So whatever purpose there was in concealment, it's done. No more.
To synopsize what you're saying over here.
We're both sitting here and coughing.
This is wonderful, with 400 people watching us apparently. But to synopsize what you're saying over here, we're walking into Pesach. You're saying that it's your belief that this is absolutely going to lead into Mashiach. Everything that we're experiencing, everything we're witnessing in the news, it's heading in a direction, and then we're not going backwards. The world is changing in a big way. And the biggest lesson is to walk into Pesach in a manner that's humble, is what you're saying.
And joyful. The more humble you are, the more joyful you are. Because if you don't take yourself seriously, you're more available to life, to others, to the purpose for which you exist. When you take yourself seriously, it blocks all those avenues. You can't really care for another person when you got your own problems. You can't be thinking about the purpose for which you exist when you've got problems trying to exist. So the more humble we are, the happier we are, the more available we are to others, the more open we are to serving the purpose for which we exist. So let's end with a bracha. This should be the most inspiring and the most meaningful Pesach you've ever had.
Amen.
And when that happens and Jews are being Jewish, then the world is at peace. The way Jews go, that's how the world goes. So let's take it up a notch. We're not going back to what was, we're going forward. And that's what Passover means. Don't pass through and then go back to what was before. Pass over. Get above what was before into a much better world. A much better world.
Amen.
So be healthy. Stay healthy. Those who need to recover should recover rapidly, as quickly as the illness came. It should go. It should disappear. And the world should be cleansed, purified, so that we can breathe a whole new breath of life.
Amen.
Thanks for the opportunity to share the thoughts. And
Thank you for sharing the thoughts with us.
let's get together and discuss when the world is already better, to reminisce about how it used to be. The old world that we left behind, the world of going to work and running around shopping and going across oceans just to visit because we got to get away from home. You know, the way the world used to be, it's funny. It was strange that people were like that once, but those days are gone. So thanks again. A kosher veilige Pesach.
Likewise to you, kosher Freilichen Pesach. The technicians to end the feed. We have our technicians ending. All right.